Hey, this is Mark Cuban, and you're listening to the Step Back, the best Mavs podcast ever.
I like this, TK. I like that. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Don't get the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Look with the ball, yeah, get nasty. He'll drop 30, don't gotta ask him.
Luka with the step back three. Oh, yeah! Porzingis, three-pointer, yes, sir. Taking the three after the pump fake, and it's money for Porzingis.
Now you got my boy Kristaps looking like Dalton and Matt in the gap. They just want a ring, want to fill the gap on your team head. I ain't talking hats, dang, go relax, still at the champ.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mavs Step Back podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined as always by my co-host and Dallas basketball and SI colleague, Matt Galatson. It's our first episode of 2020. We took a little bit of a break. Originally, we were just going to, take off Christmas through New Year's, but then Matt got the flu, unfortunately, but hey, we're recharged. We're ready to go. Matt, how you doing now?
Well, I'm not dying anymore, so that's a positive. That was a tough time for me.
I've only had the flu once, and I hope I never get it again. It was horrible.
Well, I was the idiot that forgot to get the flu shot, and I went to the Winter Classic at the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Day.
Oh, no.
And woke up, started tailgating, was having a good time, went to the game, had a blast. It's really packed in there, so maybe somebody that I was sitting near had it. But anyway, I went to go get a burger with my buddy that I went to the game with afterwards, and we were going to keep going and go watch the Sugar Bowl somewhere. And then he was like, well, I'm kind of tired. Maybe we should just, go home, regroup, and then we'll meet up again later tonight if we're feeling like it. And I was like, all right, yeah, that's a good idea. And then I got home and was like, you know what, I think I'll just lay in bed with the dog. And I got in my bed, and like literally 30 minutes later, I just started shivering and like my fever started showing up, and it just like hit me like a freight train, and was dying ever since. Good. No.
I remember because before I knew you had the flu, I was like, "Hey, so do you want you want to record the next day or so?" And you're just like, "No, no, dying."
Yeah,
but
2020 has not been my best friend so far. But it's
it hasn't been great overall in a lot of different areas. But we won't get into that.
No, we will not.
But yeah, another reason. I mean, we just decided not to do anything over the holidays. As some of you know, my little brother Colton, I had him on a podcast over Thanksgiving, and he lives in Iowa now, so it's like a 13-14 hour drive from where we're at. And since it's his first year up there, he started at his new job in June. He wasn't going to be able to make it home for the holidays, so had a family road trip, 14 hours in a car with my family. It was interesting. The drive itself wasn't that bad because, there's enough people taking shifts that it just wasn't too bad. But just overall, it's just like, oh my Lord, I can't do that again. Not anytime soon.
I mean, I got used to about an 8-hour road trip when I was driving back and forth from Oxford to Dallas when I was in college, and that got to go by pretty quickly. But 14 hours just seems like a hellscape to me.
And look, let me tell you something. People that think that the world is going to run out of places for people to live at some point have never been to Iowa. Because there's absolutely just nothing but flat land up there, and it's very cold. And anyway, had a good time overall. I wouldn't do it again anytime soon. But
maybe take a flight, or make Colton come back down to Mississippi.
he should be able to make it down next year. It was just one of those situations where he wasn't going to be able to do it this time. But
that was nice of y'all to go up there at least.
Yeah, we had fun. It's always fun spending time with family. We got to watch the college football playoffs, and got to watch the Mavs blow out the Warriors. So that was fun. But, since we've been out, The Mavs have played 11 games. The last time we recorded, it was right before that Boston game. And the Mavs ended up losing another close one at home. It was a 6-point loss. And they've only gone 5-6 since the last time we recorded. And I was joking with Matt before we got on here, and I was just like, maybe it's our fault. maybe our inconsistencies lately have kind of rubbed off on the Mavs themselves, and that's why they're not playing as well as they were from like mid-November through the first week of December. So, what do you think about that?
Well, there's absolutely no other factors. There's been no injury problems, no sort of inconsistencies with the team at all. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's not like
Luka didn't
players
twist
have
his
been
ankle
doing
or anything.
Yeah, Luka didn't twist his ankle. Other players haven't been complaining to the media about how they're not starting. The Mavericks aren't trying to hide anything from us injury wise. It's been 100%, and yeah. I mean, there's a million reasons why they're struggling. Mainly, and I think we can both agree on this, it's pretty simple. It's KP's been out since New Year's Eve. He was the late scratch against Oklahoma City, and before that, Luka was out, and they haven't really been on the floor very much together since Luka twisted his ankle, and it's been hard for the team to adjust to that. When they've been together, the shooting hasn't always been there, like we've seen with KP. He's kind of struggled, but what he does just opens everything else up for the offense and makes things way easier for Luka. And it just, the two of them haven't been on the floor together, so the Mavericks, have been trying to figure out what to do. And we hear he might be coming back soon, but there's still no way to know, because this is about to turn into Watergate. Like, people are freaking out over here.
Well,
we don't know what's true.
If the Mavs weren't the way they were about injury stuff like this, if they, we have previous examples, and I know I've mentioned Chandler Parsons to you in text and stuff, but not even that. Seth Curry's last year with the Mavs before he went to Portland, there was, okay, he's going to be out for the next few games and the next few games, and there wasn't anything like concrete about it. And then just wham, out of nowhere, he had like a stress reaction or stress fracture 1 in his leg, and he was out for the season. So, if they came out like last week or whenever it was after the last Lakers game, so December 29th. If they had come out after that, or no, he was a late scratch for the Oklahoma City game, wasn't he? It was something in warm-ups that happened. So,
I think what really happened was that he kind of hurt it a little bit against the Lakers the game before.
Yeah.
And then just realized he wasn't comfortable playing on it against Oklahoma City, and then they went into...
Okay. Well, anyway, so after that OKC game, if they would have come out and just been like, look, we're going to sit him for a couple of weeks, and we're just, being cautious about it. We don't think there's any reason for concern here. That'd be different. Then fans would be like, okay, he's going to be out for a few weeks, and then if he's not after that, then we'll freak out. But, all last week, all we heard was that, he might be coming back this week. And that's what he was hoping for. That's what he was kind of planning on. And, now he's not playing this week. And it's a maybe for next week. So, it just keeps snowballing. And like I was telling you earlier, I trust the Mavs training staff to do what's best for the players. I have absolutely zero issue with that. I know they're going to do what's best. I don't necessarily trust them to tell us everything, up front, give us all the info. And I don't know if that's just to keep the fan base from freaking out, but I don't think they realize that by withholding information,
they're freaking people out more.
They're freaking people out more by doing that. So, I don't know. And it came out that, what was that shot that he had in his knee?
PRP shot, I think. And I heard a little bit about that on the radio today. They were talking about
pretty
it
cool.
They were talking about it on 105.3 The Fan, my other employer, and it sounds like it could really help. It's it's kind of cutting edge stuff. It gets things working in the knee better. It gets the blood flowing better. Helps stuff start to rebuild. So,
Right.
Whatever the problem was, I doubt they'll ever really tell us unless it ends up being a season-ending injury, which I don't anticipate. I think what really ended up happening was he was on pace to recover at the timetable they had set, and then he got sick and he had to cut out his rehab a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of slowed things down. And I just think the combination of those two things kind of, that's what caused the delay. And then, the PRP shots, just I think that's going to be kind of the icing on the cake. They're going to do that. They're going to see how it progresses over the weekend and this back-to-back, which, I mean, if a guy has sore knee, you don't want to play in a back-to-back anyway.
Right.
So,
and look, I mean, they have every right to do what they see fit. And like I said, I trust them to do that. I mean, obviously they're going to do what's best for their $150 million player, but it's just after saying that, he might be back towards the end of last week, and then he's definitely expecting to play this week, and then all of a sudden he gets sick. I mean, that's just he probably now that we know, that he had that shot and everything done, I kind of believe it now that he did get sick and that slowed down, the whole process of that. But at the time when we didn't know that, it's like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, it seemed kind of convenient.
He just happened to get sick right now, and it's going to delay it a few more games. But yeah, I agree with you. Now, if it goes another week, then I mean, we can start thinking about pressing the panic button.
Okay, this is my prediction. I think that by the next time the next time we record, KP will have been back in the lineup. That's my prediction.
Okay, well, he has a good chance to play next week it's at Golden State on Tuesday, at Sacramento on Wednesday. So a back-to-back. If he comes back, for Golden State, I doubt he'll play in the Sacramento game. And then they play the Portland Trailblazers at home on Friday. So I agree with that. I think he'll come back for one of those. If I had to guess, probably the Sacramento game.
Yeah, or they might just wait and, hold him out for the road trip. And, when they play the Blazers on Friday, then that'll be his. Huh?
They definitely need all the help they can get at home, so I mean, I would be okay with that too.
Yeah, just give it a couple days. Don't put stress on his leg traveling if it's unnecessary. Like, I mean, it's the Kings, and what was the other road one again?
The Warriors first.
Yeah, the Warriors. So they should be able to win both of those games without him.
Yeah, and then even these games coming up, he's going to miss this home back-to-back against the Lakers and the 76ers, but. The Lakers, Anthony Davis is questionable. He took a hard fall earlier this week when they played the Knicks, and he's questionable, might not play. And then,
swear that dude's getting an MRI every other week. It's ridiculous.
He really does. I mean, he's been fortunate to not have anything happen this year that keeps him out for a long time, but it's one of those things where Laker fans have to be holding their breath every time he hits the floor because he is very injury prone.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Joel Embiid, he's out with, you saw that nasty finger dislocation he had earlier
Actually,
in the week.
did not. I heard about it,
you
but
haven't seen it.
I didn't see it on purpose.
Oh man, I'm going to ruin your night later.
Oh, thank you.
But he is out. They said he's out for at least 2 weeks, and then they're going to, reevaluate him, but. So the Mavs will dodge Embiid on Saturday, and I mean they had Embiid and they were at full strength when the Mavs played them at Philadelphia, and they handled the Sixers pretty well. So they're catching a break there, but like we've seen, especially this last 1-point loss to the Denver Nuggets, which was excruciating. We'll get into that a little bit later. Denver was losing 2 starters, and the Mavs still couldn't beat them. And then the game before let me see, which game was, let's see, they beat the Bulls. So they lost to Charlotte in overtime by 3 points.
That was
the
a
game
frustrating
before beating So just from those last two losses, I mean, even though AD might not play and Embiid's out, I mean, that doesn't guarantee anything. The Mavs got to play better. And
No, I'm watching the 76ers right now. They're playing against Boston as we record this, and they still look okay.
right.
So.
I mean, the Mavs are going to have to bring it. And look, out of the last 8 losses for the Mavs, here's how the last 8 losses have gone. They've lost by 4 points to the Kings, 4 points to the Heat in overtime, 6 points to the Celtics, 3 points to the Raptors in that colossal collapse. Then they lost by 13 to the Lakers. That's the outlier here. Lost by 5 to OKC, another late game collapse. Lost to Charlotte by 3 in overtime. And then lost to Denver by 1 just the other night. So,
I think one thing we're learning here, Dalton, is that they have, I mean, it's pretty obvious, they have a problem closing out games right now. And I can't put my finger on why, because they seemed okay doing, I mean, granted, they were just blowing teams out of the water earlier in the season. But, you know, I can't really put my finger on why they're struggling so late in games. It's just like as soon as it gets into the last 5 minutes, if it's a close game, you know, they just sort of get, you know,
the number
antsy
one
and nervous.
Here's the thing. The defense late in games always tightens up, especially in close games. So if the Mavs weren't, you know, they have the number 1 offense in the league. Well, in clutch situations, I think Tim McMahon tweeted out that they're like 28th in the league in clutch situations as far as offense goes. It shouldn't be that bad. So, I mean, I get it. The Mavs, they need another, you know, guy that can kind of create his own shot in those situations, because we saw it with Denver. They were just smothering Luka and just daring anybody else to try and beat him. And as we saw with that last play from Finney-Smith, it worked. So, and I mean, that's nothing against Finney-Smith. He's been amazing this year. He's shooting the 3-ball well, plays great defense, but
right, but
I mean,
you need KP.
Right. You need KP, and I mean, even if they have KP though, I watch them in these late game situations, and I'm thinking, and I mean, you're going to love this, but I'm just thinking, man, how cool would it be if they did have Goran Dragic right now?
Right? God.
I mean,
like,
really?
No, seriously. No, I with everybody knows my homerism on this guy, but I'm telling you, they would be at least the number 2 seed in the West if they had him right now. He's just,
I mean, after just by watching this last string of just excruciating losses in crunch time, and you know, watching everybody struggle. Even, well, let me say this: when people are doubling Luka like they have been, and we're having to rely on, you know, Jalen Brunson or DeLon Wright or Finney-Smith, Seth Curry, you know, those guys to kind of create their own deal. That's where asking them to play above what they actually are might be a little bit too much to ask.
you need a steady hand.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter, as we've seen. I mean, it's not like the Mavs are on a losing streak. They're just inconsistent from one night to the other. Well,
Yes.
I mean, like I said, and I don't know if people have kept up with how Dragic is playing for the Heat this year, but if you put him next to Luka in some of these situations, there is no doubt in my mind that, like Matt said, we would be, you know, up in that 2-3 seed range right now.
Okay, it's almost like I do this for a living and I watch basketball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I've been banging this drum for forever, and everybody's just called me an idiot. I mean, not everybody, but like,
well,
oh, he's too old. He's too old. He's, you know, he's this, he's that. He's, you know, he can't shoot. But whatever.
They didn't call you an idiot. They were just like,
I had a couple people call me an idiot, but I mean, that's Twitter. But it's true. Like he's a steady hand, and he can do a lot of different things. And
look,
I won't get on a soapbox about it, but
I know a lot of people.
Good idea.
I know a lot of people are thinking like, oh, you're just, they're being a little bit dramatic. Dragic wouldn't make that big of a difference. If you look at the standings, they're only 3 games behind the Nuggets for the 2nd seed. They would have been 2 games behind them if they had won in that 1-point loss the other night. So, I mean, that's not that big of a difference in the standings, especially when you consider, like, the distance from the Mavs up to the 2 seed is 3 games. The distance from the Mavs down to the first team out of the playoffs, the Grizzlies, is 7.5 games. So,
right.
I
just implore people, like, obviously you're going to think I'm biased on this whole thing because I've been banging the drum since last season. But just go watch one Miami game. That's all you need to do.
He's good.
And that's what they're missing.
And look, and another component to this is he's clutch too. He's had some really, really good moments in the clutch this year for the Heat.
Yes.
And and I mean, look, if they had pulled the trigger and traded for Dragic during the summer, they wouldn't have been able to get Seth Curry or DeLon Wright. But if you look forward to this summer, if they're not able, if they don't try and trade for him, or there's a couple other names we could probably talk about while we're on here, but I mean, they could go after Dragic during the summer and get him for a much more reasonable price, especially at his age. And then you still have a guy like Seth Curry and DeLon Wright on the team. So
yeah, he's going to be a free agent this summer.
But yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I mean, I know you've talked about him so much starting back during the summer, and I've been watching him this season a little bit on NBA League Pass, and given the Mavs' current situation and how they've been playing, it just clicked with me. I'm just like, you know what, Matt's right. We need to do this.
I rarely get the credit for being right, but I will revel in it while I can.
Right. Every dog finds a bone every now and then, every squirrel finds a nut, whatever it is.
Right. And also, like, he's not like the only player in the league that could fix their late game situations. He's just one that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, especially because he already has established chemistry with Luka.
That's the biggest thing here. Like that's been my thing since the very beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, look, if you look at the last stretch of games, just look at Luka. He's averaging 26.6 points per game, 47% from the field, 33% from 3, which isn't great. And then over let's look at his last 4 or 5. Well, no, he's been pretty consistent, so I'm not even going to go there. He's been pretty consistent across the board with all of his numbers. Shooting 80% from the free throw line, which is great. That's a whole lot better than what he did last year. But that 33% from 3. I mean, what do you think? We've talked about that he probably needs to cut out some of these unnecessary step back shots that seem to kind of waste possessions late in games. But I mean, what else is he supposed to do sometimes, especially when KP is out? Well, I don't know. I've kind of softened my stance on that a little bit.
When KP's on the floor, then it's a bad shot. But when Luka's out there by himself and he's got nothing else and he's just trying to get a little separation, it's fine. So it's a situational thing. He does rely on it too much. There's times where he can get to the rim if he wants to, and he chooses to do a step back instead, and that's frustrating because it's a bad shot.
Well, I mean, look, when he's finishing at the rim at the same rate and efficiency as guys like Giannis, that's what he needs to be doing.
Right.
especially
I think he'll learn that.
Games. But, the flip side to that And, this is another thing we need to get into is those league last 2-minute reports that come out. Every other game, it seems like they're coming out and basically saying the Mavs got screwed. And in the Denver game, Plumlee fouled Luka with like 28 seconds left, and it wasn't called. And that was a big turning point in that game. So I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do there. I mean, they do those last 2-minute reports to, I guess, to kind of show that the refs or we're holding the refs accountable for this. But when it's happened as many times as it's happened to the Mavs this season, I mean, it's just not working. And I don't know what the fix is. I mean, maybe we just need to collect like all the film of this happening, even not even in the last 2 minutes, just Luka getting whacked and taking knees to the face and, it not being called, and mail it to the to Adam Silver or something. I don't know what needs to be done about it.
I have a fix.
What's that?
Stop making the 2-minute report public. It's pointless. Like, show it to the referees, make sure they know what they did wrong, but there's no point in making the results public because all it does is piss people off. It's like, see, I told you we got screwed. Well, you still lost the game.
Well, see,
They're
here's
not
the
gonna
thing.
go back and change it.
It does kind of make you mad when you look at it, but I like it being shown to the public because if not, then the other side is saying, "Oh, you are just complaining because your team lost." You know what I mean? You can at least be like, "No, see, it was legit. The refs were just horrible." And it does make you mad, but I mean, I am glad it's public. I just wish that by making it public, it would actually change things, and it hasn't so far, unfortunately.
Yeah, unless it actually changes something, then I don't really want to see it or hear about it. People tweet about it constantly after close losses, and every time I see one of those tweets, I just roll my eyes. It's like, I don't care. They still lost. Move on, next game, whatever. Because you can't get that back. And just dwelling on it is just pointless to me.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things. I usually give myself 24 hours, and then I move on to the next one. But like I said, when 7 of your last 8 losses have been by single digits, it gets pretty frustrating sometimes. And there were a lot of games, the Sacramento game, the Miami game, which other one? The Oklahoma City game. I think there were calls in every one of those games that were missed in the last 2 minutes that could have decided the game. So it's frustrating, but I mean, if we're looking for a silver lining here, when the Mavs were last fully healthy, they were just running over people. And, there was a stretch there where they won 10 out of 11 games. It gave them a really good cushion. They went to Houston and blew Houston off their home court on a Sunday matinee game. They went to the Lakers and did the same thing. They just had some really, really big wins during that stretch, and then they started, having the injury bug a little bit. So that's the silver lining for me, looking at the schedule coming up, and the Lakers Friday might not have AD, and the Sixers might not have Embiid. They have a chance in both of those games. And then you've got the Warriors, the Kings, the Trailblazers, the Clippers, who have been struggling lately, and then Portland again. And then the rest of the schedule looks manageable, up through the trade deadline. So
yeah,
if they can go on and here's the thing, I think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think there's any question about it unless something just catastrophic happens. But if they can just get one more run like they did in mid-November, just like a 5 or 6 game stretch where they win the majority, if not all of those games, and, go on a little mini win streak or something. I think that would really solidify it for me. I would stop worrying about it altogether.
I'm not worried about it at all. I think they're going to make the playoffs at this point. I know it's still early, but whatever. Here's the way I choose to look at it. Like you said, they were just running through the schedule early, and they were the hottest team in the NBA, easily the most surprising team in the NBA. And then Luka turned that ankle, and so every team in the NBA is going to face adversity when it comes to injuries at some point during the season, and that's what the Mavs are dealing with right now. And the way I choose to look at it is it's happening early enough in the season where you can recover from it later, and they've managed the schedule well enough to where they've minimized the damage almost, not completely, but as well as you could have hoped.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty well said. I agree with that too. And I mean, like we talked about earlier, they're closer to the top of the Western Conference, game-wise, loss-wise, win and loss column, than they are to the bottom, even though they're sixth. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but, they're in sixth place, but they're closer to the second seed than they are to the 8th seed. So,
right, and they're not gonna stay this. They're not gonna be this unhealthy. I mean, they just got Tim Hardaway Jr. back too. That was a big addition to get back, which I didn't anticipate us saying over the summer if he would have gotten hurt.
He's been so good. I think.
Yeah.
And look, during after that trade, the KP trade, a day or so after that, I wrote a piece for DallasBasketball.com saying that he could be the underrated piece of that trade. And
could he be a candidate for the NBA's most improved player?
I think he could. I mean, he's shooting.
I think he should be.
He's shooting a career high percentage from three. I mean, he's been good defensively too, which is the most surprising thing for me. If you watched him any last year with the Knicks or after that Knicks trade, he was basically like one of those what's those doors you can just blow through?
Revolving door.
Yeah, he's basically a revolving door. He was letting everybody by. This year, he's actually D'ing people up, and it's been great to watch. He's a
hell of an athlete.
And it's not just that; it's like the passion that he plays with. He's so happy to be on a winning team and contributing to the winning team that he's just, I don't know, he's like the heart and soul of the team almost. He gets so fired up after he makes a good play, and I love it. And
it feels like every time his dad's in attendance, he goes off.
Oh, if Tim Sr.'s in attendance, Junior's going for at least 25 points.
Yeah, it's nuts. But Tim Sr. was one of my favorite players growing up, so it's really cool seeing him around the American Airlines Center all the time, and whatever is there, it helps Junior reach a different level of his game, and it's really cool.
And the good thing is, if they make the playoffs, I have no doubt that Tim Sr. will be in attendance for every game, so that might be a good thing too.
Oh yeah,
but I'm not as worried about the playoff seeding. Especially since the Mavs have been so much better on the road than they have at home for whatever reasons. I'm just more looking at the matchups. Like if the playoffs started today with the Mavs as a 6th seed, they'd be playing the Rockets, which, if the Mavs were the 5 seed, they'd be playing the Clippers. So I'd much rather have that 3-6 matchup with the Rockets than playing the Clippers in the first round.
I'll make a prediction right now. What's the Mavericks record?
23-14.
23-14. So 37. They're almost halfway through the season.
Yes.
I will predict right now that if the Mavericks play the Rockets in a playoff series, the Mavericks would win in 5 games.
That's pretty bold. I do think they'd win the series. I don't know about 5 games, but
I think they would bitch slap the Rockets in a playoff series.
Well, I love the confidence, and I really hope that comes true, because that would be just, oh my goodness, that'd be it'd be delicious is what it would be.
Yeah, and I just think the Rockets are a fraud. I think that nobody plays James Harden better in the NBA than the Mavericks do.
Especially Dorian Finney-Smith. He is so good against Harden.
Yeah, he's really good against Harden, and if you just look at the splits, the Mavericks play him incredibly well just on the raw stats. They do better than just about anybody. And I think Russell Westbrook is the most overrated, inefficient, worthless player that gets paid that kind of money that I think I've seen in, a decade.
I wouldn't say worthless. Look, I don't want to do you're going to do like Mark Cuban and say he's not a superstar.
He's not a superstar.
He's going to proceed to torch us.
He's not a superstar.
But look,
I will back Mark Cuban up on that 100%.
Unless something super weird happened in that playoff series, like Russ shooting 50% from 3 or something crazy like that. I completely agree. The Mavs have more depth. They have a better coach, in my opinion.
They're the anti-Rockets.
Right. We haven't seen Luka in the playoffs before. KP, he really wants to get there and do some damage. Overall, I really think they could beat the Rockets, whether they have home court or not. And that's the team that I would be most confident against, looking at the top 4 in the West. I don't know, though. I mean, anything could happen because there's such little separation between the Mavs and the 5 teams that are in front of them. So it's going to be a fun second half of the season. The trade deadline is February 6th, so we have a little less than a month. Let me see here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, about almost 4 more weeks until the trade deadline, and then we'll have the All-Star break and all that. They'll get a much-needed rest. But, I mean, look, with the trade deadline coming up, what do you think that they need to do? Because we've talked about this a little bit, and I don't know that they need to make a big move. I really don't think they need to do that. I think they could wait, and if something big comes up around, the draft or something like that, like Bradley Beal, you might think about doing something there. But right now, the way the offense is playing, aside from in the clutch, I just don't know how much you need to risk throwing a wrench into that. I'm starting to think that the only 2 players I would be okay with the Mavs trading for at this point is Bogdan Bogdanović or Robert Covington. And other than that, I mean, I'm just really not sure.
Goran.
What do you think? Well, I mean, yeah, but
they're not going to trade him, I don't think.
Yeah,
He's too important to what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, they'd have to give up too much that's important to them in that kind of trade. So that's more of a summer move. But, I mean, I'm looking at Minnesota at 14-22. They're 9, 10, 11. They're 12th in the Western Conference standings right now. I think they have a good shot if they wanted to go after Covington. I'm not exactly sure what Minnesota would be asking for him, but I think it would be
well, they still need a point guard.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they want Brunson. And I mean, if you trade Brunson and a second-round pick or something for Covington,
Courtney Lee to help match the salaries.
Yeah. And then, you give DeLon more minutes, or if you need Barea to play, let him play for the rest of the year in certain spots. And then, like we talked about during the summer, you can go out and get a Goran Dragic to take Jalen Brunson's spot. So, temporarily, of course, because he's much older than Brunson. But, I mean, I could see something like that really helping the Mavs the rest of the season.
There's only one home run move, I think, that I would say, give them almost whatever they want. And that's Bogdan Bogdanović. Now,
yeah, I mean, he just makes so much sense. The way he plays the game, the way he's shooting the ball, he doesn't. he gives the he would give the Mavs another big wing that can create his own shot. He can pass the ball. He can rebound a little bit. And just his game just matches up so well with what the Mavs do. I'm like you. I don't see a better fit out there. Now, that said, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like other teams around the league could beat whatever the Mavs have to offer.
Right, that's
for
the rub.
him. Yeah. But, I mean, the Mavs do have some recent history making trades with the Kings, too.
Yeah,
So
there's relationships there. And, you know, I'm going to look up who his agent is because I feel like that's an advantage too. Give me 1 second.
And another thing, it's like whoever trades for Bogdanovich, if they trade him, whoever gets him is going to have to be committed to giving him big money this summer. And that's one reason why everybody's speculating that the Kings might not keep him, because they've already paid Harrison Barnes big money. They just paid Buddy Hield big money earlier this season on an extension. De'Aaron Fox's next contract is coming up next season, and then Bagley after that, I believe. So, I mean, unless they just want to lock in to this core, that has them 8 games under 500, sitting at the 11th spot in the West. I mean, if they don't plan on paying Bogdanovich big money, they might as well go ahead and trade him for whatever they can get now, instead of just risking losing him for nothing, not matching an offer this summer. So,
right, and so the agent for Bogdan is Jason Rane. He worked for Wasserman.
I was about to say I was pretty sure it's somebody we're not familiar with, but
right. But he manages a lot of he is an agent for a lot of European players.
Yeah.
I would imagine Donnie has some kind of a relationship with him, but I thought it was somebody else, so that's my mistake. Anyway, that's the home run that's the only one I can see. Now, Robert Covington would still be a very good move. I don't think it would have the same kind of impact, but he would be very, very good. I don't think you necessarily have to change anything that you do bringing him in either. He makes your defense better.
He would be a bigger version of what we thought Wesley Matthews would be in Dallas.
And a better version.
Yeah.
And one without a flat tire.
Now, given Covington, he's kind of had a slump year shooting from 3, but that's just the outlier. He's shooting 33% so far, but he's playing on the Timberwolves. They don't have a point guard. They don't have Luka.
Right.
So he would just be a huge addition for the Mavs, in my opinion.
There's a lot of apathy, I think, in Minnesota, and they don't have somebody that can create and make things easier for them. And
again, I mean, you
look what Luka has done for Dorian.
Right? Yeah. And Tim Hardaway Jr.
And Tim Hardaway Jr. And Robert Covington is a better shooter than Dorian Finney-Smith could ever dream of being. So,
I'm confident in saying that if the Mavs did pull something off and got Covington, that he would shoot at or near 40% from 3 playing with Luka. I'm pretty confident.
I agree.
Because I mean, I've watched, and I mean, we saw it up close when the Mavs played the Timberwolves last time. He was draining threes with hands all in his face. Like he had like no space at all to shoot sometimes, and he was still nailing tough shots. He would have he would have space that he's never had before.
And I think he would be very good. Mavs. I think he would be very good come playoff time.
Yes, he has experience there.
So that's another big thing that I would love about having him on the team, because
it's funny to me.
They don't have, outside of Barea, they don't have very much playoff experience. So I think they'll need to make some kind of a move to acquire somebody that gives them that, because I mean, it can't just be a bunch of green, young guys raring to go in the playoffs. I mean, that won't work. We all know how much things change.
Well, you know what I keep thinking about is how Seth Curry performed last year with the Blazers in the playoffs. So we know he can do it.
Yes.
That was very fun to watch. I'll be excited to see what he can do in that spot. But going back to Covington real quick, a funny thing I saw earlier, there was a report that the 76ers were looking for better shooters, and Robert Covington was one of the names that that was listed. And I was thinking, okay, you traded him away for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler said, okay, I'm not staying here. I'm going to go to Miami. You let J.J. Redick and T.J. McConnell leave so you can sign Al Horford, your second center, to play with Embiid. And now you're like, okay, yeah, we definitely needed shooters. Let's try and get Covington back again.
Yeah, well, no, hey, we're gonna trade Robert Covington as part of the Jimmy Butler deal, and then we're gonna trade Jimmy Butler to Miami for Josh Richardson, and then maybe they'll trade Josh Richardson back to the Timberwolves for Robert Covington. I mean, you never know.
The circle of life.
Yeah, the NBA is kind of incestuous in that way sometimes, I guess, but it's just, if he goes to Philadelphia, I'll be super pissed. I'll put it that way.
Well, look, this will be the last thing we touch on. We've already talked about, a couple of names and trades, and literally just a couple, because, I mean, there's really, to me, there's not a lot of...
Can we both agree on one thing?
What's that?
No Andre Drummond.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, I think if it did happen, it could work, but I'm not willing to risk, because the offense is going to take a hit if you trade for Drummond. It's no question. So
it stinks of the Rondo move to me.
Yeah, well, I think he's more of a high character guy than Rondo myself. So I don't think, as far as like jamming up the offense, I think you're right. As far as his personality and everything, I don't think he's a guy that would quit on you in the playoffs. So, but yeah, I mean, he's a super talented player, probably one of the best centers in the league. But I mean, the style just doesn't fit, and I think they could make it work. I think he'd get his numbers in Dallas. I think he'd play well with Luka eventually. But overall, I just think the offense would take too much of a hit, and they wouldn't be, in the same type of situation they are now. So I think they're best when they're running KP at the 5 and, going that route at center. Not a player like Andre Drummond. And look, I'll be the first one to tell you, I got to say this. Earlier in the season when I wrote that piece about the Mavs, why they might want to look at Blake Griffin, somebody needs to tag Old Takes Exposed to that tweet, because I'm sorry, Matt. I really messed up on that one.
Dalton.
Yeah, I mean, you might need to find that and do that for me, because I really messed up on that. But, to my credit, he had only played 2 games so far in the season at that point, and I don't know. I thought he was in for a big season, but as it turns out, those injury issues were there all along, and thank goodness the Mavs didn't trade for him. But that is one of my ice-cold takes that I will probably never live down. But the Mavs are good. They're probably not going to be doing any dealing with the Pistons, and I think I'm safe for now.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay.
But anyway, anything else before we get out of here, Matt?
No, I mean, you mentioned you had one other thing you wanted to talk about. Before I interrupted with the Drummond thing.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, look, we got 3.5 weeks left until the trade deadline. And we've talked about a lot of different names and gone over a lot of stuff there. But when it's said and done, do you think the Mavs will make a trade? And what do you think the trade will be if you think so?
Yes, I do. But there's a caveat to that. I think they need to be in a certain position to make a trade. So what I mean by that is in the standings. So if they find themselves, in the 5, 6, 7 range maybe, and they feel like they need to make a trade to kind of jumpstart things, I think that's the way it would happen.
Yes.
Or maybe they get to the top 2 or 3 seeds, and they're like, hey, if we make this one move, we don't have to give up that much. It could really put us over the top. Maybe there's a way. But I think if they stay on the path that they're on right now, and they get back and they get healthy, and they stay around the 4 or 5 range, and they keep up their offensive efficiency, I don't think they will. I think they're it's either going to be, hey, we need to save our playoff standing, or hey, this move is going to put us over the top for it to happen. And I don't know that's going to be in the cards. I think they're by the end of the season they'll be a 4 or 5 seed, and they'll head into the playoffs with what they have, and we'll see what happens.
Well, and like I mentioned earlier, their schedule, especially given the what's turned out with AD might not be playing this weekend and Embiid's out, so their schedule from this Friday through the trade deadline isn't bad at all. So I mean, if they rack up some wins like they did early on during the season, and they get they're in that 3-4 seed range around the trade deadline, I think they'll be less likely to pull the trigger on something. But to me, and this is a name that we didn't even talk about, but he's been talked about in the past, and Andre Iguodala, I just feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. And, Fish broke that news during the summer that they were interested, and then a few weeks ago Mark Stein said that they're not interested anymore, and then I think it was Eric Pincus came out with a story and said that NBA GMs were saying that Stein report was just posturing, and that they were probably arguing over that Warriors pick. And look, I agree. If if the Grizzlies are asking for that Warriors pick, it's no. You're not getting that. If you want Courtney Lee and you want like the Utah 2nd round pick or something, fine. But I mean, they're not getting a 1st rounder for Iguodala. They're not getting an early 2nd rounder for Iguodala. So if they're willing to take Courtney Lee and a lesser 2nd round pick, I'm all for it. I think that justifies any kind of risk you might have. I think he's still a good player. He can still give you 15, 20 minutes of high-quality basketball, and I think he'd be a really good asset in the postseason too. It'd give them more experience like what we were talking about earlier. So that's my prediction. I think they find a way to get that done without having to give up too much.
Yeah.
Because look, I highly doubt that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to buy him out. I think they'll take whatever they can get at the last second before, even entertaining that situation. So we'll see.
If they give up the Warriors pick for Iguodala, I would riot.
They won't. They're not going to do that.
Right.
Because they don't need Iguodala that bad. He would help, but they don't need him that bad. So I mean,
yeah,
they have some leverage there.
I mean, I already told you my specific names earlier. I mean, there might be something that we're just not thinking of, which tends to happen. I mean,
yeah. Well, look, there's gonna be rumors swirling for the next 2 or 3 weeks, right up until the buzzer. So, I mean, these next 2 or 3 episodes of the Mavs Step Back podcast, we're going to be discussing a lot of this over the next few weeks. So,
yeah,
if we haven't thought of something now, we will definitely do so in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll bring you all. I mean, this is our favorite thing to talk about, obviously.
Yes.
I mean, so we'll bring you all the rumors. I mean, that's half of what Dalton and I text each other are just screenshots of TradeNBA.com of what if we did this. So,
well, look, that's going to do it for this episode. I mean, we've gone for the majority of an hour here, and it's been great. It's been great to get back and talk about the Mavs again. We had so much we wanted to talk about, but like I said, between the holidays and then Matt got sick, and it wasn't in the cards, but it gave us a chance to energize and re-energize, and we plan on having a really, really fun 2020, and we're going to have a lot of great guests this year for y'all, just like we did last year. And we really appreciate all the support that y'all gave us in our first year. We've grown so much. That's a testament to you guys coming in every week and listening and telling your friends and subscribing and all that. So we really appreciate that. And, I mean, definitely go to our YouTube page, like we've been saying, and subscribe there. We're going to be uploading more content on that page this year, and by subscribing, being one of the first 1,000 subscribers, you will automatically be entered for a chance to win 2 tickets to the Mavs home game of your choice. So it's a win-win situation there. Anything else, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about that is we're running out of time.
Yeah,
it's halfway through the season, and we're still not there yet.
Look,
so y'all are and tickets are getting more expensive. The more the Mavs win, the more the more it's going to be difficult to get the
I'll say this.
Good
I'll
tickets.
say this. Depending on how close we are towards the end of the season, we might consider extending it into the first part of next season, because I have no doubt we'll hit that goal before next season starts. But depending on how close we are, we may go ahead and do something at the end of the season, but if not, we'll extend it to like the first month of next season or something. But we need to get on Fish. We need to make we need to get him to hit that RT button and let more MFFLs know about this.
Yes, we do.
But guys, look, that's going to do it for another episode. We appreciate y'all coming in and listening every week. We will be back next week. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
A lot of times feel like I was on the road to nowhere. Tell me why all these people up in my face acting like I know them. Feeling like Luka Doncic, rookie of the year, I'm the coldest. God speaking through me every single track, prophet like Moses. Asking why I gotta wait till I'm dead to go and get my roses. Feeling like Mavs 2019, grinding unfocused. I used to go to bed at night discouraged, so hopeless. Went through the same pain, my friends chose drugs to cope with. Now I'm reading all these hating comments, man, it got me in motion. I had to whip up the potion, I ain't even with the boasting. I was just broken, way down to my lowest. Getting swallowed by them locusts, letting God do the coaching. I had to go through a lot, just to realize that I'm chosen. Carry away, felt like boulders, all of those slams shut. Had to bulldoze them, name a rapper dude who can see me over wax. I'm just trying to spit the facts, when I spit my flow, people telling me relax. I just get it double back, They still asking for more and I gave them my last. Can't never seen it let go of the past, and that's sad. I just sit back and reflect. Oh my God, they really feeling the kid. Family calling on the phone, almost a star. June, look what you did. About to put Silk right back on the grid. Go kill a beat and go listen to Trig. Turn on my phone and I listen to Matt. Headphones in, sit back with a grin. Making up a profit, I don't care about the profit. I'm just teaching like a prophet. I'm just preaching like a prophet. Staying tall like I'm Dodger. Sleeping on me like pajamas. I'm just trying to fill up my wallet. But what you call it, profit trying to make a profit, Everybody wanna live lavish and ball, but got no clue what it costs. I done helped a lot of people, but when I'm down, I ain't got no one to call. Had to get up and throw my feelings in the trash. Man, my heart was getting mauled. Walking on this thin roadway to my goals. Man, they praying I fall off. And I ain't feel nothing but hate. Best rapper at the table and I ain't even ate. Still got the nerve to try to take my plate. But I'm a hero to these people and I ain't got a cake to nowhere. Tell me why all these people up in my face acting like I know them. Feeling like Luka Doncic, rookie of the year, I'm the coldest. God speaking through me every single track, prophet like Moses. Asking why I gotta wait till I'm dead to go and get my roses. Feeling like Mavs 2019, grinding unfocused. I used to go to bed at night discouraged, so hopeless. Went through the same pain, my friends chose drugs to cope with. Now I'm reading all these hating comments, man, it got me rolling. Tell me why all these people people up in my face, acting like I know them. Feeling like Luka Doncic, rookie of the year, I'm the coldest. God speaking through me every single track, prophet like Moses. Asking why I gotta wait till I'm dead to go and get my roses. Feeling like last 2019, grinding, I'm focused. I used to go to bed at night, discouraged, so hopeless. Went through the same pain, my friends chose drugs to cope with. Now reading all these hating comments, man, it got me rolling.